Hi everybody, Kyle Baley doing another Dimecast on Sharp Architecture, and this time we're going to talk about the T4 templating features of MVC and Sharp Architecture in particular. In the first Dimecast, if you recall, we had some CRUD scaffolding that uses the T4 templates and T4 toolbox to generate a whole bunch of stuff, resulting in this wonderful music collection you see here before you. One of the things it generates is the controller for you, and here's the songs controller. And what I thought would be a good idea is to modify the templates, because one of the things I don't like about the default ones is that it injects an iRepository of type song into the controller. This is something that makes me fly into a bit of a rage here. So I'm going to seethe for a couple of seconds. Not for too long, I don't have that much time, but that was me seething. What I'd rather see is something like this, iSong repository, an explicit repository, not a generic one. The reason I like that is because I can later add methods to it, like a find for it, and I don't want to do that on the generic one. And it kind of looks nicer. You know, we've got this iSong repository. You don't have those angry angle brackets in there. So what I would like the templating to do is, rather than inject a generic iRepository, which comes from Sharp Architecture, I would like it to generate for me an actual interface, an iSong repository. I'm going to be deleting this. This is going to take a while because I cannot spell repository for the life of me than the first time. And this would implement. You guys are going to be having a gas in this one here. And it will also generate an actual implementation. Slowly. There we go. This one will inherit from It's just like one of those words like bejesus. iSong repository. This is what I would like it to generate, and this is what I would like it to inject into my controller, as well as to update the variable for it, which is conveniently located right at the bottom. So let's get to work here. So I'm going to delete what I just created, because I'm going to be generating again. I'm going to delete all the tests that are generated from the CRUD as well. Nothing in there. We get the songs controller. I'm going to do this in silence because I can't babble and think at the same time. You've probably figured that out by now after the 8-odd Dimecasts I've already done. So our templates, it's not the prettiest thing. You'll notice that formatting needs to take place somewhat. I'm using a light on dark format that doesn't apply to T4 templates. You'll also find that T4 templates have other niceties, like not being able to use resharper shortcuts to get from one place to another, or even Visual Studio ones. You don't get like a refactoring. You can't refactor. You can't even use var keyword here. It's got to be explicit, and that would make the Sharp Architecture headmaster Billy McCafferty pretty happy, but it doesn't endear the technology to me any. So these templates, located under the CRUD scaffolding, are executed in various forms, and so the easiest one we're going to tackle first is the controller template. It derives from base template, which itself derives from template, which I believe is either a T4 construct or a T4 toolbox construct. Regardless, it's pretty easy. It takes a constructor here with a bunch of variables, and this is under the render core method. This is the text that actually gets rendered when the template is output. So what we want to do is take the constructor, here's the class declaration, take the constructor controller, and instead of injecting an iRepository, I'm going to cut that, of type song, we want to do an iSong repository. Same thing with our conveniently located variable at the bottom. iSong, whoops, going the wrong way there, repository. So when this template gets generated, we're going to get a controller with an I song repository in it. We also need templates to actually generate the interfaces and the repositories itself. And we're going to do that through the magic of unhiding files here. You'll notice I've already got it generated and I've just unhidden it. Include it in the project, include our repository in the project, and we'll just talk about what they do. The repository interface template, they both do essentially the same thing. They're pretty simple. Output a namespace, public interface, I, entity name, repository. In here, or implementing I repository of entity name. The repository template itself is pretty similar. It's public class. Entity name repository, implementing I, entity name repository, and inheriting from repository base of entity name. Not a whole lot to these ones. Where we need to go now is to the generator. This is the template that actually does all the work. It's an actual T4 toolbox generator, and here you can see it calls this method to generate the domain objects in the tests, generate the controller in the tests, generate the views. To that we add generate repository interface, generate repository. Okay. We also need to include these two templates in our includes at the top. Okay, and next we need to actually implement these two methods. And how you do that, you find this file, generate templates on your desktop, and copy and paste from it. If you don't have that file, well, you're out of luck. I'm kidding, of course, you don't have that file, but you don't want to see me type. So, generate repository. All it does is copy and paste it from other methods on here, sets up some files and paths, create a variable of type repository template, and render it to a file. Okay, passing in all these, the file names and all that other stuff to it. Move it to its proper location, and then actually add it to the project. Make sure it's included in the project itself. The repository interface template does pretty much the same thing. So in order to launch this whole thing, if you recall from our first Dimecast, uncomment this line, and then watch the magic happen. It'll add a bunch of stuff here. And it's going to work through the magic of Camtasia editing, because if it doesn't, I'm just going to edit it until it does work. Cut out this part and we'll start over. Hence the pause. You can see it generating all the things on the right here. You can ignore this error because it's a lying error. And go into our core here, our data interfaces, and we've had some trouble actually including it in the project, but it's there. The other problem here that I'm not going to bother trying to solve, I'm going to run this again because it hasn't actually added the implementation of our song repository. There you are. Ignore your little error. And back to our data project. Now we have an actual song repository. Okay, back to our controller. Let's refresh you. And we now have an actual I song repository being injected in here, and we've got our I repository of type song. I screwed up not including, it's because I haven't included this in the project. So we got some issues with our templates, but regardless, this is how the T4 templating aspect of it works. And with that, and in fact, I lied a little bit here. You should be used to that by now. I don't generally inject a repository into the controllers anyway. That's what we've got this application services for. So I'm going to get all that set up for the next one, and we'll actually get some real work done so we can create a search interface using some TDD or BDD methods to search for songs based on some criteria. Until then, template strong, I suppose.